Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie and television discussion in the multiverse. I'm your host, Adam Porters, and I'm joined today by Sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet.
I'm looking forward to speaking about Jupiter's poetry.
And to the internet, he'll always be known as Anime Dad, but to me, he'll always be Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and boy, how the kids these days can't get enough Depression-era stories in their comic book shows.
They love it. The kids are always cracking on me going, can we get some 1929 action up in this piece? I need it in my life. And we're delivering on some of that this day because we are back this week to talk about the first half of Jupiter's Legacy on Netflix. It's been quite a roller coaster ride for Jupiter's Legacy, as the early reports are that the Netflix ratings were quite high for whatever Netflix ratings mean, you know. But supposedly this series did quite well, but Netflix decided not to give it a season 2. So this week we're going to try to get to the bottom of that.
Wasn't it kind of rude to cancel it so quickly? Like, I think you could have just let it fade away and not had to make the announcement right away.
It's really fast, especially when it seems to be still people are, still getting on it and watching. It's been out for a couple of weeks now, and we're
yeah. I mean, it still had some life to run. I don't know why they wanted to I have to imagine that discourages you from wanting to undertake it if you haven't gotten around to it yet. I think you give it at least 3 months, unless somebody somewhere was pushing something and they had no choice.
It is strange. It does seem like a quick, hey, by the way, thanks for watching. Nobody else watch now, please. Thank you. We don't need any more watchings.
If I may quote one of the greats, Michelle Tanner. How rude.
How rude indeed. So we're going to be talking about Mark Miller's work on Jupiter's Legacy coming up soon. But before we do that, we do want to say a big giant thank you to the people who make this show happen and support us over at patreon.com/HMP. Those intrepid do-gooders get the pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone, and of course, they vote on the movies that we watch every month. It's a new month, and as such, we'd like to thank each of our supporters over at patreon.com/HMP that come in at the high levels this month. The crew is back. Tim the Longhauler, Derrick, Sir Derrick, Slick Derrick, the Night Bard, are still rocking in at that $40 level. And of course, we still got Brian Curvaceous, Brian Z as Spider-Zee, the Bryans as I like to call them. Alex and Matt coming in at that $20 level as well. A big giant thank you to you guys for helping support this show month after month. It really is appreciated. And a big giant thank you to all of those people that come in at that $5 level. Again, you guys are the backbone of the show, help keeps it going and everything. This week, we got to make up for last week. We got Chad Hall, who was denied a nickname last week. Sean put the kibosh on me and Bruce.
Yeah, because you guys literally were like, his last name's Hall. I'll just
literally the next words out of my mouth were going to be, and rightfully so. that you're not wrong. You were not wrong to have that opinion, and I agree.
It's not good for anyone when Adam and I are immediately on the same page.
Yeah, that's called something's broken. Turn back the clock and try again, please.
It's broke.
It ain't no good. So, Sean, what do we have for Chad Hall this week?
Well, Chad Hall, first of all, I have started following you on Twitter since you've started following me on Twitter. So I took a snoop around. I'm not going to lie to you. Try to get your personality a little bit, not calling you Hall Pass or whatever.
Fair.
And so, going through what I know about you, I think you're going to like the nickname that I've come up with. Me and the boys here in the workshop came up with a name. That name is the Dynamic Uno.
All right.
I like that.
And then we got another guy this week, right?
Yep, coming in at that $10 level. Please welcome to the table, Eric Pedersen. It may be Peterson. There's one of those things. It's how it's spelled differently on Patreon, but no matter how it's pronounced, we've got a new name for you around here, Sean.
So Eric, if it's pronounced actually Eric Peterson, which I'm guessing it might be, but correct us if you're wrong. Yeah. I actually know an Eric Peterson. I've known him for years and years. And here's the thing I know about that guy. He makes the best sandwich I've ever had. It was so good, in fact, that he left the town that we lived in and then moved to Oregon, to Portland, Oregon, to start his own sandwich shop.
Huh.
And of course, incredible Sammys from that guy. And so, Eric Peterson, your HMP nickname is Glorious Sandwich.
Ah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Glorious sandwich. All right. Perfect. All right. Well, if you would like to vote on what we watch each month, get the pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone, and get yourself a nickname, head on over to patreon.com/HMP and join at a rate, however big or small. Make it something that means something to you. Like we say, we don't want you sitting and listening to, 45 minutes worth of ads for crap that you don't want and a whole bunch of other things. We all spend money on big corporations all the time. Think about the small independent creators like us, and we want to thank all of those supporters who are helping smaller people like us who don't want to sit here and have to read 18,000 ads for you for, crap that, frankly, you don't even want. So head on over to patreon.com/HMP. All of the stuff is there. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate all of those supporters. And, of course, if you're on that Podcast 2.0 device, go ahead and throw a couple of Bitcoin at us. We really appreciate that as well.
Yeah, no less than 2 Bitcoin.
Well, technically, okay. So, all right. So I have to. All right, let me say something. So I have to say it that way because most of the people, if I just say
yes, I know,
lightning, they're not good. They're good at lightning. What the hell's lightning?
We all know.
So,
but of course, because it said so clunkily, we're going to have to say something.
Hey, listen, I'm nothing if not a clunky man. I think we've all proven that as the rate of this podcast is
60, 70 grand. We don't care.
Fair enough.
Instead of value for value, how about make small bigger?
Make small bigger. That's all right. Well, here is the trailer for Jupiter's Legacy.
I get tons of emails about that for some reason.
Don't you remember the island? And what we had to do to earn these powers?
90 years. 90 years, and what do we have to show for it?
We've made a difference, Shell.
What was Dad like when he was younger?
Nothing ever rattled him faster.
The man I knew was never at home when I was a kid. Too busy saving the world.
Chloe, everything you do is a reflection on this family. You have to be the ideal.
No one can live up to the ideal. Not even Dad.
They're not even close to being ready. I'm doing everything I can to keep this family from falling apart.
Well, it's not working.
It used to be that you protect your country. They call you a hero.
The world is changing. So I guess we're gonna have to change with it.
Whether I can do this anymore. You do the right thing, somebody dies. You do the wrong thing, somebody dies.
So what would you do if you were the one calling the shots?
Alrighty, that was the trailer for Jupiter's Legacy. It is available right now on Netflix. There's been a lot of Mark Miller May was really last month if you think about it. We did Superman Red Sun. This came out, but let's see what he's got for us. What do you say?
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
Bruce, what do you got for us this week?
Jupiter's Legacy is a comic written by Mark Miller and drawn by the one and only Frank Quitely. I feel like Quitely is a polarizing figure in the world of comic art, but I really like him. Do you guys feel one way or another about Quitely?
He's my favorite artist.
Not a fan.
See, that's what I mean. But Jupiter's Legacy was published by Image and first hit store shelves in 2013. A lot of influences have been thrown around in relation to Jupiter's Legacy, things like Star Wars, King Kong, and Roman mythology. I can see the mythology part, but I've been watching closely for giant gorillas, and I haven't seen a single one yet. Personally, and I must admit that despite enjoying much of his work, I do hold a degree of bias toward Miller. But personally, I think Jupiter's Legacy is his latest of many attempts to write his own version of Watchmen. He openly admitted as much with Wanted, and I think he's kept stabbing at it since. Now, superhero deconstruction has become such a well-traveled genre at this point that a writer really needs to bring a unique angle to it. And though it's well written, I'm not sure Jupiter's Legacy brings anything altogether new to the story type. I think maybe it focuses more on economics than other stories have, but maybe didn't do enough with that to truly set itself apart. I ask you, good listeners, when will we ever get that ongoing comic book series built around sound economic theory that we've all been asking for? No need to answer. That was a rhetorical question. But when seeking inspiration for how to write the second generation heroes, Mark Miller drew inspiration from none other than Carrie Fisher, who he had read had stated that despite her fame as Princess Leia, she didn't feel like anything special because of her two even more famous parents. It led Miller to observe that, quote, even Princess Leia feels the sense of not living up to her parents. Darn that Bell Organa. Anyway, Miller also described the series as, and I quote, a big weighty tome that happens to be about superheroes, end quote. It also examines the connection of superheroes to the American ideal, according to Mark Miller. As to the economics undercurrent in Jupiter's Legacy, Mark Miller had this to say. As someone who grew up with an American flag in my bedroom, I watched from across the Atlantic in the past few years to see something I never thought I'd see in my lifetime, poverty in the States. It actually touches my life because a lot of my friends who are comic book fans or freelancers will tell me stories I never could have imagined happening in my lifetime, like how their local gas station is closing down because no one in town has the money to run a car anymore. It's a country that growing up, I always associated with things getting bigger and better, and to see it contracting is actually quite terrifying. That served as the inspiration for the backdrop to this story. Now, I can't think of a better source of escapism from the drudgery of everyday life than a nice story about superheroes in a recession. Also, Miller has a history of writing stories with specific actors in mind to portray certain characters on screen. The most famous example of this, of course, was his casting of Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury before the Iron Man film was ever produced. But for Jupiter's Legacy, the one actor he really wanted was none other than Mr. Holland himself, Richard Dreyfuss. But I don't think that worked out. Miller said it would take a minimum of 3 movies to appropriately tell the story of Jupiter's Legacy. But with the twists and turns that confront us in real life, just as they do characters in comic books, this story got 0 movies and 1 and only 1 season of a TV show. So perhaps that is what will be remembered as the legacy of Jupiter's Legacy. Netflix gave it fewer seasons than they gave The Big Show. No offense intended toward Paul White. I really like The Big Show, but I'm just making a point.
Wait, so The Big Show has a show on Netflix or something?
2 seasons.
What does he do?
A crossover. Huh?
What do they do?
It's The Big Show and his family. And
it's just like White. Reality kind of
Jaleel White's his best friend.
Okay, well, all right. Now you've piqued my interest. I was like, there's no reason for me to. What's that you say? Jaleel White is in this thing. Well, I'll give it a gander.
Yeah.
Well, Bruce, if that trailer to your comic book connection wasn't enough, let me try to sell everybody on Jupiter's Legacy, because this show has everything. Bearded superheroes, monkey mask, Great Depression flashbacks, signature Mark Miller ultraviolence, more Technocrane shots than a Brian De Palma film. As you said, Watchmen nods. We've also got the champagne and beers, old people makeup, a-hole kids, the misfits, dreams on a beach, gratuitous contusions, gratuitous eggs, questions of morality. Kurtwood Smith has his own Indianapolis speech. We got teleportation batons, the best Josh Duhamel performance since Taco Bell Web of Fries 2. Phil Collins, it's got it all. How could you not love this show?
That was rock solid. That was rock solid.
It's so, here's the thing, because we we touched on it half a second before the show started and everything, and I feel like I'm probably the outlier in this show, because so far for the first 4 episodes, by the way, spoiler for the first 4 episodes of Jupiter's Legacy on Netflix, I enjoyed this show. I was shocked. I put this thing off forever just because I knew nothing about it. I hadn't seen a trailer. I'd seen a couple of shots of Dumel in his suit and everything, and that is probably my lowest thing on this entire show, is that the costumes are kind of but overall I kind of like where the story is going, and it feels like, unlike a lot of things that we see in this superhero genre, that we know everything right on Front Street. There is a lot going on in this show that is just going to be told to us in flashbacks and other things, and it's nice to turn on a show and not know exactly where things are going, and that's how I felt with this one.
And
go ahead, Bruce.
Well, I've watched a lot of CW shows, so I was also comfortable. No, seriously, I was comfortable, and I'm not being facetious. I was comfortable with the level of special effects and that sort of thing. So that might have been something that you guys will criticize, but I actually had no problem with that part. I didn't really start enjoying it till that final fight in the end of the first episode. And I actually really like that. I wish more superhero TV shows and movies would have a fight you could clearly see everything that's going on like that. And it did, look like CW effects, even though it was made on an HBO budget, what I understand.
I feel like it looks better than this. That fight specifically, I feel like that looks better than any CW fight that's out there. I'd put that pound for pound. And this is from Steven.
It's pretty much on par, but it should, it cost more than a CW show.
Oh, sure. But I think it looks better than that.
Put it on par with that. I mean, nobody's going to mistake that fight for the fight with Darkseid in Snyder's Justice League.
See, I don't even remember what that was.
Yeah, and that's kind of my point.
Really gray.
Yeah, that's kind of my point, though, is I don't mind if it looks a little more kitschy or campy, but you can actually see what's happening. It's the Michael Bay Transformers phenomenon where, man, I bet something awesome's happening. Too bad all we see is this up close of some gears twisting. It's been an increasing problem of poorly lit fights because, they don't want it to look as campy as it does when it's bright. But this fight is out in the bright sun of day and you can see everything. And that's part of what I enjoyed early on about the CW stories before they ran out of actual stories to tell.
Josh Duhamel is at least a 3-time Michael Bay star.
It's true.
At least that many. He may have done a couple more that I can't remember, but at least a couple.
And before I saw the flashback scenes, because we do see the flashback scenes where Josh Duhamel is playing the young version of Utopian of Sheldon. Young Sheldon is in this show.
That's true.
But before we saw those, I was wondering how much old age makeup they really had to use on him and just how rough life had been to him in the last couple of years. Because, he's not been coming up aces the last couple of years.
So let's bring it into that because he is pretty much the big name of the show and everything. What are you guys' thoughts previous to this and with this on Josh Duhamel?
I like Tad Hamilton.
That is one of the best names for a movie ever, Win a Date with Tad Hamilton. It's a very good name for a movie. Let me go backwards for a second, though, Adam, because let me talk generally here first. So, starting to watch the show, I hate it. I hated it with a blinding passion. I hate for the most part, most of the acting at first. And the costumes were bad, and the makeup is bad. And there's nothing new being told in that first episode. There's nothing surprising. There's nothing different. It's all the same hallmarks of things we've seen 100 times already and done better by many other properties. And so, I'm having a really tough time. Then the second episode, it gets a little better. And is it the 4th episode that Kurtwood Smith is in?
Yeah.
So I end up watching the entire series. Mainly because of some of the performances. I love Ben Daniels on this show. I love him. I think he is the most interesting character.
And I apologize. Who is he on the show? I don't recognize.
Brainwave.
Okay,
he's the brother.
That's who he wanted Richard Dreyfuss to be.
Well, Richard Dreyfuss is exactly the wrong person to play this character. I mean, like,
let's be honest. I mean, like, his casting of Eminem and Wanted, would you have wanted that? I think not.
No.
He's no Charles McAvoy.
But Ben Daniels completely carries the show on his back, in my opinion, and he's just terrific. And he plays everything so well. And it's so interesting, him and Josh Duhamel, because I am totally and utterly indifferent towards Josh Duhamel. I think that he is in some very big projects that are very bad and not fun to watch, and he's bad in them. But I also know that he has a certain charm to him. And so when put in the right spot, he can be pretty effective. And I'm choosing my word very carefully there. He's effective. He's not great. He's good.
He was my favorite part of this.
To me, it's him and Brainwave together is my favorite part of it.
Yeah, for me, it was just like I liked seeing him in this. I think this is probably his best acting wise that he's done. Seriously, the Taco Bell Web of Fries 2 is like he was in those 2 Taco Bell commercials, which he was actually kind of great in. Those were super stupid commercials, but I liked them. But it feels like he's becoming one of those actors. Like, he's a good looking guy. I don't think anybody's going to deny that's a good looking guy. But I feel like he's getting better with age. He looks like I like just a handsome man become grizzled, right? It feels like it makes them better actors. Leo was the exact same way. Like, once
Clint
Eastwood again, yeah, exactly. The more kind of hammered and stuff that they looked up, the better that they could be. And Josh Duhamel is kind of banging on that door a little bit. And I feel like while this may not be, that giant, like DiCaprio-esque sort of role, this will be his kind of, I think people are going to start looking at him like, maybe this guy's got a little bit more than just that handsome face that we got. He's not quite there yet. I think you're right in as much as like he's not there just yet, but this is the best that he's done so far, and I hope that this is a springboard for the rest of his career, quite frankly.
And Netflix does like to use the same people whenever they, from time to time in their production. So, I mean, maybe he'll get like a second wind in his career on Netflix, but I think he could absolutely carry the kind of Netflix originals that are being made. But I did not expect to like him. I mean, what did I remember about him? Tad Hamilton, and he used to be married to Fergie, and that was about it. But he really sold the older version of Sheldon to me better than he did the younger version.
I really like his performance as the younger version.
Well, I didn't dislike it, but in the older one, I was surprised at how paternal he felt and how he really felt older than what I know he is. And I was just kind of caught off guard at how much I found that performance appealing, because I expected not to, given, the limitations of costuming and makeup on this show.
Yeah, the costuming is weird. Like I said, I haven't read the book or anything, but like, are these like
supposed to be fairly accurate from what I understand?
Bruce,
I've seen lots of covers on the shelf, but as I disclosed in the Comic Book Connection, I've got certain obstacles to picking up a Mark Millar comic, because a lot of times he writes like 4 issues and wants to sell the rights to a movie and never goes back to it. So I don't necessarily want to get into it.
That's fair.
But with Jupiter's Legacy, he actually has kept it going for a while, and saw a lot of the covers on the shelf, and they had beautiful covers. I mean, they're all Frank Quietly covers, but I never did pick one up.
Yeah, I got to say, that's the one thing that this show is missing a lot of, is these people not just doing that Frank Quietly duck face throughout the entire thing. It's really a bit of a disappointment, if you ask me. That's just my personal taste.
And that was a little bit of a holdback too. I mean, I think in the comics, at least on the covers, Utopian looks a little bit older and wiser than Josh Duhamel does, but Josh Duhamel really sells the character.
Yeah, he's surprisingly good in this. It's funny that the things that I thought I was going to hate turned out to be some of the stuff that I like the most. Like, I do like that they keep flashing back to the Depression, and the characters when they're younger. The show gets much more interesting when there is no powers, and they're dealing with psychological issues instead of just, we got to beat up this big bad guy.
Yeah, and that's honestly what I kind of liked about it was, that there is a slight mystery box to this whole show, which is we have these flashbacks back to 1929 and then further on, and they have no powers. We do not know how they get to this point to where they live extravagantly long years. They're in their 90s at this point. We don't know how any of that happens, and just kind of that peppering along the little clues is like, okay, here's the next little thing. Here's the next little thing. It kept me intrigued.
My understanding of the comic too is like it gets to how they got their powers a little more quickly, but it also never gets to it. It's like, okay, how did they get their powers? Oh, they went to this island, and when they left, they had powers, but we never find out what happened on that island in the comic. So that kind of that just like annoys me. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. If other people like it, that's awesome, but like it almost feels like a lack of ideas or creativity to me. That you build them. It's a little J.J. Abrams. You build the mystery, but you never have a solution to the mystery in mind.
That's interesting to me, though, that they never get to how they get their powers, because the show does show you. I mean,
that's a step up for the show then.
Yeah.
And maybe that's maybe I'm not the only one who kind of complained about that.
Maybe so. I like the juxtaposition. I like the aspect ratio changes and everything that makes you can. Frankly, they don't need them, but it's nice to have them there.
It's so funny, man, because when the first time that happened, I was like, "Oh, Adam's in heaven."
And a couple of them, they do them like nice and smooth and everything, where they just kind of like
4:3.
Yeah. Well, no, my God, please don't get me started. Did you know I saw a thing somebody put out like
the 4K
4K Blu-ray for Justice League? I'm like, dude, it's a 4K movie. What a time. What a great world we're living in, where that's
means
the
if it were
thing.
full screen, it would be like 7K, right? Because I got to fit all those pixels in a square instead of a rectangle.
Yeah, it should actually be more dense because you just scraped them all in there. That makes a very good point. You know what? That's probably going to change my experience of Zack Snyder's Justice League. I changed that to a Tim Drake.
Oh, man. Nothing like seeing gray in 4K.
Yeah. Don't get me started.
We're getting off target here. We're getting off target. Now, one of the things, and I did not feel compelled to watch it all the way through, Sean. So maybe I'm not in a good position to be making big picture statements, but from the first 4 episodes, I felt like they're holding too much back. Like they are really counting on you being interested in watching that next episode. It also felt like they are really taken for granted that there would be a season 2. I feel like this is a prolonged prologue.
Well, they definitely are holding back, but by the end of this season, and I won't spoil those 4 episodes, but by the end of the season, it ends on a good end. Like there's only 8 episodes. It's not like those old Netflix Marvel shows where
13.
there's like 4 episodes where it's like, well, you guys
those
are just
were only 8
wheel.
episodes. Also, they just took 13 episodes to cover it.
Well, that's what I mean. So you have, once things really start to gear up, it really starts to gear up where they have 3 different plot lines going, and for the most part they're interesting. There's one plot line that I like, it's been done to death to me, and it's the daughter.
Yeah, the Chloe plot line that was.
Oh my Lord!
And not only did it feel tiring from like minute 1 to me, that plot line, I wasn't real impressed with the actress selling it either. I mean, it really felt like made for Lifetime Network, and people work hard on those. I shouldn't be using that as a derogatory term, but it felt like something from the past where melodrama would be okay.
When you're one of those Lifetime directors and you've made 50 films in the last 10 years, they don't work that hard.
I mean, just look at the difference in how this actor in this show sells having superpowers and substance abuse problems compared to how Kristen Ritter sold it on Jessica Jones. I mean, it's just or how Kristen Ritter sold it in Breaking Bad. I mean, it's just we expect a higher level, I think, for that character type now.
Yes.
How old do you think these kids are supposed to be in this family?
Well, they have to be over 21 because I saw them drinking.
Well, that's true. Because as everyone knows, if you go up to a liquor bottle under the age of 21 and you try to take the cap off, it won't work. Go ahead, try it.
Nubile fingers.
Try it. Just go ahead and try it. If you're under 21,
please do not
roll
try
up
that.
to the parents' liquor cabinet and try to take off the top of the Jameson. It's not going to happen for you. It's just not going to work.
Send all legal claims to the Patreon of HMP.
Shut up. What is wrong with you?
You're telling kids to get drunk and stuff.
Trust me, the average listener to this show, I promise you, is at least 32.
You mean we're not just swarmed with 14-year-olds?
Not really. I mean, if you look at all the statistics and everybody that talks back and forth,
Okay.
we're a lovely old man podcast, but people love us and we love them.
I do love my rocking chair on the porch.
Hey, it's nice. You get a cool breeze coming through, a little mojito. You're having a good time.
But no, I really am getting like they're set in that post-college pre-marriage age. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying like the 23, 24 age.
Yeah, those couple years where Christmas just sucks.
Those couple of years where you're not grown up, but you also don't have to follow any rules.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, Sean. I know you know.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah, where yes. Anyway. Moving on.
I love, throwing a dude through a wall and then your landlord coming in being like, excuse me, you put a hole in our wall. What? You're going to have to leave now. And of course, she looks over to the girl who apparently has like masonry powers or something. I don't know what's going on over there, but she just kind of like twiddles her fingers a little bit. He's like, all right, old man, the hole's finished. Why don't you get out of here before we kill you all? People talk to these superpowered people that they know are superpowered much braver than I would be in front of these people because, man, oh, man.
Yeah, but they know about the code. These kids follow the code.
That's true.
Boy, let me tell you, the code is the second most annoying part of the show. It's the second most thing where it's just like, good Lord Almighty, you guys like.
Now, I think that the idea of the code is supposed to be annoying, though. That's like a postmodern deconstruction thing about how ridiculous it is that Superman and Batman have their codes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and clearly it is, and it's for a reason. I understand all that, but just how far they lean into it is kind of ridiculous.
And of course, Red Sun is fresh in our minds since we watched it last week, but it is the same writer. And when Brainwave is talking to Utopian about maybe how they should be like governmental leaders, I'm really feeling like Superman in Moscow there too.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that part because, that's kind of how it would probably play out.
Of course.
I like how all the heroes are members of the WGA. They start off with like, we're over here. I just got my union card and everything. And
yeah, the union is actually the name of the Justice League in this.
At first I was just like, hold on, they're doing what now? Because the girl, she's a model and everything. So you figure, maybe somebody's getting into acting, and then you're like, oh, that's your Justice League. Okay, cool. All right, that's fine. But at first it's a little. I was like, oh, huh? Oh, all right, fair.
But I think that was probably intentionally named to sound like organized labor by Miller.
No, that he's way more subtle than that, Bruce. You're not giving the man enough credit. He hides things under layers that you don't even see. All right,
he's like an onion.
Yeah, he's like an onion ninja.
Can we talk about some of the nuts and bolts of the show, like behind the scenes stuff, a little bit?
Okay.
Yes, please. Because I have a whopper of a story. If you're not going to hit it.
Okay, well, I've got two big questions, and I don't know. I doubt either of these are a whopper. But the first question is, where did the money go? Because this had a $200 million budget.
I'm guessing towards the producers.
Yeah, because you compare the first 8 episodes of this to the first 9 episodes of Mandalorian that was made for $90 million, and well, I guess they were buying real cocaine for Chloe to use or something. I don't know, but where did that money go? And also, they changed horses in the middle of the race. Like, they couldn't make it 8 episodes with the same showrunner.
Oh, right.
Yeah, they replaced the showrunner halfway through, too. So that tells me, like, maybe lots of money spent on reshoots, like true wasted money that you don't get to see on the screen. Plus, maybe they had to continue paying the old showrunner's contract when the new guy came in.
So is Stephen S. tonight, is he like the new one or is he the old one?
He's the one who didn't make it to the end. Because the one who took over for him, I'm not positive. I think the name seemed maybe Korean to me.
He has, I don't want to say a reputation, but he has kind of had some things where he's been, jumped out from time to time.
I know nothing about Stephen S. DeKnight.
Well, you probably know him from a little television series in 2015 called Daredevil.
Yeah.
That's to me, that was his big one. He's got a whole bunch of other stuff like Spartacus and Smallville and some stuff like that. But like that was his big giant kind of in my opinion, is coming out party.
No small accomplishment either. I mean, it was a massive commercial success.
He started getting his juice with the old Spartacus TV show.
Yeah, that I haven't seen.
If you're a 14-year-old boy, you've probably seen it. Because a
lot of chowder buckets,
lot of chowder bucket action in that show.
Yes, and a lot of brutal combat. Too.
Yeah, so it's just like it's every 14-year-old boy's going like, hell yeah, I'm watching this, and we're talking about it at school the next day. And some poor kid's going like, man, my mom doesn't get premium cable.
Was it on like Stars or something? Like it wouldn't have been on HBO.
Showtime, I think.
Yeah,
one of those
would have been like second tier cable. So I guess those are the two things I was wanting to mention and ask about. I think that might be part of why, that change in showrunners, maybe that has a little bit to do with no season 2. Because like if you get rid of the first guy and the second guy didn't like it, what happens there? Plus you look, I mean, I don't know how Netflix economics works, but you spend the budget of the second Avengers movie on this show.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to recoup.
Yeah.
Bruce, do you know they had to buy every one of those period cars? They had to. They just had to because, it's just, it's expensive.
Okay,
they
so
can't rent
that
them.
is like
everybody gets a Model A.
It's 0.5% of their budget. Where's the rest going?
Josh Duhamel's Cocaine Reservoir.
So do you guys know the Jupiter's Children story to this?
I know that Jupiter's Children, I get Jupiter's Children and Jupiter's Circle confused. But are you talking about like the comic book spinoff?
No.
Didn't they sing the Dawn of Aquarius? Oh, wait, that's the Fifth Dimension.
So there's this band, and the band is called Jupiter's Children. And just before Miller and Quitely are about to release the comic book Jupiter's Children, they see that there's a band. And so they're like, you know what? We'll ask the band if the band's okay with it. The band was not okay with it. So they go, okay, then we'll change it to Jupiter's Legacy. And so they do. Change it to Jupiter's Legacy. Jupiter's Children, the band, then threatens to sue Mark Millar and Frank Quitely for the name, even though there is no case for this. There's nothingness. And so Jupiter's Children starts getting a little mouthy, and they say, we're going to name our new album Jupiter's Legacy. Jupiter's Children, our next album is going to be Jupiter's Legacy. And that is when the lawyers come in and they're like, go ahead, try it. See what happens.
Let me guess, $200 million settlement. That's where the production budget went.
We had to get a lot to a band no one's ever heard of. So,
well, what I'm saying is that when the band started making threats about how they were going to name their next album this thing, the powers that be, I don't know who does Jupiter's Legacy. I don't know the comic book company. Is it Image?
Image, yeah.
Well, the lawyers at Image said, go ahead and try doing that. And so that album never got released under the name Jupiter's Legacy.
It'd be funny if Image was just like, this is creator owned. Y'all take it up with them.
Well, they could have. I don't. Miller's not exactly without resources.
Right. I mean, geez. So basically, this band got very angry indeed that there was going to be a comic book that had the same name as their band name, even though this has gone on for generations where things have the same names.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's no law against a comic book and a band being named the same thing.
Exactly.
Please enjoy my new podcast, Gladys Knight and the Pips, coming this October.
So it was just a very interesting side story that I saw while looking up the Stallone connection this week. I was like, oh, that's very interesting.
I like the kind of teleportation baton thing that the one character has. I don't know that I've seen anything quite like that before.
Pretty neat.
And I loved how, kind of finding out how it worked and everything. That's another point of them. They're telling us a little bit, but they're also showing us at the same time. So it's not quite as like, this is what I have and this is what it does all the time. It's not quite as bad as all of that. But you still get to see, this thing, pays attention to me and me alone, so I can go drop these guys off in shark-infested waters and then get my baton back. So it's not like, oh, you stole it from me, but it only listens to the things that I say. And I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah, and it's weird because there are really clever things like that. Like that is a really cool, really interesting, really clever power as far as like character creation from Miller. I'm imagining he probably came up with that idea, but then a whole lot of them just seem sort of like the lazy, vague, they got superpowers. Like that was another part that bothers me a little bit, is when he doesn't, when he's approaching the story, but not the characters. Right. And because it's somewhat of a commentary, deconstruction story, doesn't feel the need to like still come up with interesting powers and characters, and too much of them are just like the vague, like a guy who doesn't know anything about superheroes, what he thinks superheroes are. Whereas Miller has, worked in the business for enough time that he should have the chops if he would put the energy in to come up with some stuff, because he has definitely come up with plenty of interesting non-powered characters.
Now, do you feel that he's kind of like you said, between like this and Wanted and a couple other things, do you feel that he's kind of retreading a lot of the same ground too much, or is he a victim of his success and the things that he has done? Like, what do you think is leading us to, or do you think that's leading us to like these stories that kind of seem, I don't want to say repetitive per se coming from him, but at the very least slightly derivative perhaps?
Well, my biggest complaint is that he doesn't, I feel like he doesn't approach comic books as a medium deserving of their own artistic creation. He approaches them as a stepping stone towards motion pictures.
It's a ways to a means. I totally agree. And quite honestly, he's been right. I mean, he's made a whole lot of money. But also his best movies have been significantly changed by the screenwriters. Yeah. So he's really just used to spitballing an outline, calling it a comic, and then, let other people refine it to something that works on screen. But ultimately, you see, when you kind of lose that step B and you go from A to C, it might not work out as well.
And ultimately, it is just like, sure, he does all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't. I don't know. To me, it never really. I don't mind going back to kind of similar themes of stuff that we've kind of seen before, or at the same time too, it also feels like, and tell me if you think this is off base, it feels like he's trying to kind of, like you said, chase that dragon and perfect his own sort of, in this particular case, Watchmen, bag, if you will. I don't know the right words today.
Yeah, I mean, he's got, I think, a part of him that always realizes that he's never going to be in that conversation about Grant Morrison and Alan Moore. Mm. Yeah, he's one of those great English writers, but he's not going to be in the same breath as, Grant Morrison's Scottish, but they're on the same island. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they're all in the same area. We're Americans. You guys are all pretty much alike.
I mean, that was the big deal that he made. Well, I don't know if he made it or just publicists made it, but it was a big deal because Frank Quitely hadn't done an ongoing series with anybody other than Grant Morrison in years until he signed on to Jupiter's Legacy. So it was almost like he's chasing, he wants to be in that Grant Morrison conversation. He wants to be in that Alan Moore conversation, probably if you consider that North Ireland's part of the UK, he wants to be in that Garth Ennis conversation. And he's gone all kinds of directions. One of my favorite recent things he ever wrote was something called Huck, where he actually dialed it back and told the story.
Oh man, I love Huck.
He dialed it back, but still Huck is just Superman.
Yeah, but with developmental problems, but
sweetness. There's a lot of sweetness in Huck.
Such a great. Is it more than just the 4 issues?
Nope. That's another reason why sometimes I'm hesitant to. If I pick it up, I'll pick up the trade. But when it's going to be 4 issues and done because he wants to sell the movie rights. I mean, Kingsman was 4 issues and they made a movie and then somebody else got to write the follow-up.
Hey man, right? we're almost at more more movies of Kingsman than actual books. We're getting close. But you got to admit, though, it served him well. Like, be that as it may, I would put good money that Miller's pocketbook is a little bit more fatter than Morrison's and everybody else.
Probably. I don't know, man. I have no way how to judge this. Like, I don't know how to judge. Like, the Hollywood money is big, but also, Alan Moore and Grant Morrison probably have some weird income. I'll put it this way, that Alan Moore's income is not limited by the fact that people don't make movies about what he wrote. It's because he chooses not to take that money.
What a weird decision. But
anymore.
I get it.
Yeah.
Is he taking money now? You said it anymore.
He doesn't take money now. He took one check, and then after that, he didn't.
Okay, so it was okay. I got you. Took the one. I took the one hit, and then I'm like, oh, money, gross. Get it out of here. No, thank you.
If Grant Morrison and Alan Moore were sitting down and saying, I'm going to write this 4-issue limited series with the intention that I'm going to sell it, like how Stephen King used to sell movie rights before he wrote the book. Miller has done that. And Morrison and Moore don't do that. They approach comic book writing as the end goal.
Do you think, like Stephen King, he also has a cocaine addiction, and that's why he has to?
I don't think so, man. I don't. I think he, from all I can tell, he seems to be pretty good head on his shoulders, like a nice, solid guy.
Yeah,
it's just.
Yeah, he's just
he works. He has a great formula where he comes up with a general idea, and Matthew Vaughn turns it into one of the best movies ever made. That's worked a couple of times.
Yes,
but I don't think it works sans Matthew Vaughn.
And the same thing with Miller is that his ideas aren't generally original and new ideas. Like I'm thinking about stuff like Ultimate Avengers is great. It's very very good, especially that first run.
Yeah, those 12 issues are great.
But there's nothing in that. There's nothing in those 12 issues where you would go, oh man, this is just mind-blowingly different.
There's nothing in there that kind of breaks the seal and makes you go like, I mean, a lot of that, like his writing is good, but the Hitch artwork in that's really kind of the.
But there's also nothing wrong with derivative work.
No, not at all. But that's what I'm trying to get across is that
because like Wanted, he'll just come out and say, oh yeah, this character was basically Catwoman. Right. That's the same thing Alan Moore did with Watchmen, and that's like you're not going to.
Well, hold on a second, because the difference between what Miller does and what Moore does is that Moore has so many ideas and concepts.
The difference is in the craft and the execution.
Yes.
That's why I'm saying derivative work I have no problem with. I mean, one of my all-time favorite comics is Miracle Man, and what Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman did with Miracle Man is, you could say it's not original, but it's also unlike anything else, so it is original.
Right.
And Miller is good in that vein. He's just not as good as some other people, in my opinion. But because it's the creative part of it. Like there's nothing new that he's creating. It's like I mean, shoot, look at the interesting thing with the guy with the baton in Jupiter's Legacy, right? I mean, that's basically Green Lantern. It behaves the same way that Green Lantern's ring does, except that it transports you instead of making constructs with it. But that key element of it only listens to me, that is Green Lantern. And I think his absolute best creation, one of my 3 favorite characters of all time, Adam, is Hit Girl.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's a lot of, I mean, it had been done by Grant Morrison with Damian Wayne, but he took that and he made it work even better.
Yeah.
The Deadly Child, changed the gender, make her this borderline fascist politically. I mean, he really made one of the best characters in all of comics, and then he continues to make uninspired stories about her now. But one of my all-time favorites. So I think it's like that thing, if you work really, really hard, you can come up with something great that pays just the exact same amount of money as something mediocre that you can do more of.
Sure.
And I'm not going to fault him for doing what works for him, but I think he's capable of good stuff, and there's nothing wrong with being derivative. And I know he has it in him to add some kind of flair that makes it feel fresh, but he just doesn't do that very often. Like Huck feels a little bit fresh, like we already talked about. He finds that new angle. So I know he can do it, but sometimes it's like, do you want to work that extra 6 hours to get paid the same thing you get for putting in 8 instead of 14? I mean, sometimes maybe that, he's not 21 years old anymore.
No, but there is also it's different when it's your own stuff,
Yeah.
like,
I guess
he's been there for a long time now.
And I don't really feel, I feel like, I don't really feel like he is driven by the art. I think he's driven by the business, and, he enjoys it and he's glad to have a reputation. But I think he's closer to the, this is going to sound harsh to some people, no matter how you take it, but I think he's closer to like the Rob Liefeld mold than he is the Grant Morrison or Garth Ennis or Neil Gaiman mold.
Sure. I agree.
They've all accomplished great things in comics, but they did it in different ways.
Yep.
Well, someone else who does things in all kinds of different ways that no other human being could do. We have to find out how this television show relates back 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement. Hello, Mr. Stallone. I'm sorry to bother you again. It's Sweet Chauncey from the internet. Now, look, I know you're busy and that you don't want to hear more about Jupiter's Legacy. Hell, I don't want to talk about it anymore. But each week, I need to connect what we've been watching back to you. And this week, we watched Jupiter's Legacy. So here it is. Jeffrey A. Melvin. Jeffrey A. Melvin was the set decorator on Jupiter's Legacy, and he was the prop master on Avenging Angelo, a movie you made back in 2002. It's hard to believe it's been 20 years since you made that film, and yet it was. And there was Jeffrey A. Melvin handing you props, and you probably didn't know it, but Jeffrey A. Melvin had been working in the film business since 1985, back when he was a buyer on the classic movie called Follow That Bird, starring a very large walking yellow bird. But the biggest project Jeffrey A. Melvin would be involved with was in 1994 when he worked on a show called RoboCop the Series, starring everyone's favorite RoboCop, Canadian superstar Richard Eden. And if you read the IMDb user reviews, you'll find that people either hate this series or really hate this series. But don't take my word for it. Listen to this review by someone who wishes to be named Sick Coyote.
Yeah.
His review is entitled, "Not the Same as the Movies." He writes, and I'm quoting, "Although this movie could have done with being shown at a later time so they could have him actually shoot people and the other things like that in the film. On its own, just looking at it as a RoboCop series without comparing it to the movie, it is very good. It's got RoboCop, he's robotic, and he's got a gun. He's certainly more RoboCop in this than he is in the later animated series Alpha Commando. Whoa. Too much expression." End quote. And here we are again, Mr. Stallone. That's how you're connected to this direct to Netflix, then immediately canceled series. I hope to hear from you soon. This is the 358th time we've tried this bit. I'll do better next week. Thank you. Your new best friend, Sweet Chauncey from the internet.
My. Now, here's the big thing. This would normally be the time in the show where we would review a program. We have not viewed the entire, save for Sean, have not reviewed the entirety of this series. Bruce and I have gotten halfway through. So I guess ultimately, let's do me and Bruce, our kind of thoughts on it on this far, and then we'll throw it to Sean for kind of a rebuttal, if you will. I like this. I was intrigued by the first 4 episodes. I like at least the way the story is kind of being told in the back and forth style between the kind of current time and old time and everything, trying to find out the mystery box of these people and their powers, how they got to be who they are, and the status that they eventually got to. How much of that will be answered within the next 4 episodes, I do not know, but I am curious enough. Bruce, what say you?
Now, I don't know if I quite understood your question.
Do you want to see more of this or no?
I'm not super compelled to watch more of it. I feel I keep getting the feeling like they're holding back their best stuff for last, but I'm going to walk out before the show's over.
Okay.
I can't think of a better way to explain it than that. Like it really feels like a prologue to something great, and I feel like having that knowledge that we're not going to get a season 2, it's probably going to end in a way that totally doesn't work for a show that's not going to get a season 2. Like, I feel like they're holding back their best stuff for next season instead of coming out, throwing those punches early on and get me hooked early on.
Yeah, there is an interesting dichotomy that you said there, is that like they either are going to, you know, what it feels like they're doing here, which is holding everything back and just kind of had that nice slow rollout, versus those shows that come out guns blazing and just go like, bro, we don't know if we're going to get another series, so we're gonna throw the whole kitchen sink in and make sure you know it all.
Just imagine if WandaVision got canceled after 3 episodes, what our memory of that show would be.
It'd be very strange. You'd really have a hard time trying to explain to people what that is. Sean, are the last 4 episodes going to do anything for us?
Bruce, you will hate the last couple of minutes of this show, so don't watch it. Stay where you are.
Okay.
You know, it ends on a big cliffhanger twister, and you know you're never gonna know what happens except for in the books. So I would not continue watching if I were you. You are a completist, and I think that you will not enjoy it. I liked this enough. I really thought I was going to hate this thing all the way through. And then, you know, by the end of episode 4, just be like, damn you. But it's not like, you know, I was doing other things while this was on. This is not something where you can just sit and watch the whole thing, especially since there's so much fat on them ribs. You know, there's a lot of stuff I fast forwarded through, or I was doing other things while it was on, and I was still able to follow it, which is probably not great for the show, you know, being able to say that. Like, I didn't need to watch every second of it to know what was happening. It's fine. I give it a high Stephanie Brown. It's less than average, but it's not the worst thing I've ever seen by any means.
So we may not do the last 4 episodes. I'm going to watch them regardless, and I'll probably...
He's never going to watch them.
You know when I'm going to... You know when because I already planned it, because I knew that statement was coming, and I've already... and not for nothing, you're not incorrect, but...
He's doubled down on the lie, in fact. Doubling down on a lie.
I want you to quiz me after I watch all... Because it may not be... It's not going to be all in one week, I can tell you that, because I'm already starting to get busy again. But... when I watch Loki, I'm going to watch an episode of this.
Looks like we're going to be watching Dollman versus Demonic Toys pretty soon.
Well, hey, I'm all for that.
How dare you? I mean, be accurate as well. How dare you? So we'll talk about what we're going to watch next week in just a moment. In the meantime, Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
Hey, I'm still asking people to check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/C/Bruce Leslie. The YouTube life is a real ride on a pendulum. I'll tell you that right now. It swings up and down, up and down. But come check it out. Doing a great series on Attack on Titan. I'll be getting started back on Jujutsu Kaisen soon. I've dropped a little sort of first impression on Cells at Work and One Punch Man. So there's a pretty good variety of anime stuff there if you want to go check it out. I am learning to be America's or the world's anime dad, not just America's.
It's fantastic.
You too, Venezuela. I am your anime dad.
Yeah, click on the link. It's in the show notes, as always.
I believe they would call you Poppy.
That sounds dirty.
It can be. Sean, what else?
We've got this show called 30 Questions where we ask 30 questions of some nerdy property that we have watched, which is new and current. And wouldn't you know it, this Wednesday, Loki drops, the new season, the new thing for Marvel. And we will be having a 30 questions about that show. And so, boy, I hope you got your Sunday blocked, boys, because we're going to be here for a long time.
We are back to doing this show and our 30 questions show, plus the Dinger Zone. We do so much work for you. Patreon.com/HMP.
I'm glad it starts next week, so I don't have to miss that. Is it Jake Paul or Logan Paul boxing tonight?
That's Logan Paul, I believe.
Yeah.
Or Jake. I don't know. They're all the same to me. They're all just people that I want to see just take a good old-fashioned fist to the face. God bless. But we'll be talking about that on that channel. So if you listen to Falcon and the Winter Soldier, just stay subscribed to that channel. That's going to be turning over into Loki 30 Questions and not too awful long. So do check that out.
Bruce, maybe that's how you get more viewers is you go into a boxing ring.
Oh, I get knocked out by Floyd Mayweather? No, thank you.
Because that's the reason why he's there is so that people keep watching him. See, I'm still current. I'm still relative.
Listen, nothing against the kid. I mean, like I'm not a fan or anything, but I'll say this: the kid don't stop. He at least keeps pumping that thing and is becoming that big of a internet celebrity. And so, hey, more power to you, I guess. So that is it, everybody. Next week, we're going to be talking about Sweet Tooth, also on Netflix. Yeah, we're making sure that you pay for that Netflix, and it actually pays for itself by watching a couple things on it. So I think that's about like a sugar heiress or something like that. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
More or less.
How many episodes of that are we going to watch?
I thought it's a movie. Is it not a movie?
I think it's a series.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Anyways, we'll be killing ourselves next week here at Hero Movie Podcast, patreon.com/HGP. That'll do it for this episode. Next week, Sweet Tooth on Netflix. For Sweet Sean's a Kovacs from the internet. Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portress. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie. It's 8 episodes.